Sister Catherine O'Malley had spent 25 years serving the poorest communities of Detroit, never owning more than could fit in a small wooden trunk at the foot of her narrow bed. At 53, her hands bore the calluses of countless hours spent serving meals at homeless shelters. Her eyes held the depth of someone who had witnessed both humanity's cruelest struggles and its most beautiful moments of redemption. The letter arrived on a grey October morning, delivered by a well-dressed attorney who seemed oddly out of place in the modest convent where Sister Catherine had lived since taking her final vows. The envelope bore the letterhead of Morrison, Blake and Associates, a prestigious law firm from Boston, and contained news that would challenge everything Sister Catherine thought she knew about providence and purpose. Her great-aunt Millicent, a woman she had met only twice in her childhood and with whom her family had lost contact decades ago, had died at the age of 97, leaving behind an estate worth $4.2 million. According to the will, Sister Catherine was the sole beneficiary, inheriting not only liquid assets, but also a portfolio of real estate investments that had grown substantially over the past 30 years. The attorney, Mr. Blake, explained that Millicent had followed Catherine's religious career from afar, reading about her work in local newspapers and somehow tracking her dedication to serving Detroit's most vulnerable populations. "Your aunt was quite specific in her instructions," Mr. Blake said, adjusting his expensive glasses. "She believed you would know what to do with this inheritance better than anyone else in the family." Sister Catherine stared at the legal documents spread across the simple wooden table in the convent's meeting room, feeling the weight of an impossible decision pressing down on her shoulders like a physical burden. The news of Sister Catherine's inheritance spread through the convent with the speed of whispered prayers, creating a mixture of excitement and uncertainty among her fellow sisters. Mother Superior Margaret, a woman who had guided the community for over 15 years, called an emergency meeting to discuss what she termed this unexpected blessing. The assumption among the sisters was clear. Such a substantial gift would be donated to the church, perhaps funding much-needed renovations to their aging building or supporting their missionary work in Central America. But Sister Catherine found herself unable to sleep that night, walking the empty corridors of the convent while wrestling with a calling that seemed to pull her in a completely different direction. She had spent decades working in Detroit's most forgotten neighborhoods, serving meals to homeless individuals who had been failed by every system designed to help them, tutoring children whose families had been broken by poverty and addiction, and holding the hands of elderly people who had been abandoned by their own relatives. These faces haunted her prayers, and the inheritance felt less like a personal windfall than a divine responsibility that demanded careful consideration. The next morning, instead of attending the scheduled meeting with Mother Superior, Sister Catherine walked to Sacred Heart Shelter, where she had volunteered every Tuesday for the past 8 years. She needed to see the people she served to understand what this money could mean in their hands rather than in the church's coffers. As she ladled soup into worn plastic bowls and looked into the eyes of men and women who had been invisible to society for so long, Sister Catherine felt a clarity that surprised her with its intensity. This money wasn't meant for buildings or institutions. It was meant for the individuals whom Christ himself would have served first. Block 3. Among the regular visitors to Sacred Heart Shelter was Maria Santos, a 42-year-old woman whose story embodied the complex realities of homelessness that Sister Catherine had witnessed countless times. Maria had been a nurse for 15 years before a car accident left her with chronic pain, leading to prescription drug dependency that eventually cost her both her job and her apartment. Despite her medical knowledge and professional experience, Maria had been living in her car for 8 months, too proud to seek help from family members who had written her off as a lost cause. Sister Catherine had spent many evenings talking with Maria, recognizing in her not just intelligence and education, but a deep well of compassion that had been temporarily buried under layers of shame and circumstance. Maria still carried her nursing textbooks in a battered backpack, reading them by streetlight as if maintaining some connection to the person she used to be could somehow resurrect her former life. During one of their conversations, Maria had confided her dream of opening a small clinic that would serve other homeless individuals, people who were often turned away from traditional medical facilities due to their appearance or inability to pay. "I know what it's like to be invisible," Maria had told Sister Catherine. "I know how to talk to people who have been forgotten by everyone else." Sister Catherine had been struck by the profound irony that someone with so much to offer was sleeping in a parking lot, while medical facilities throughout the city struggled with staff shortages. The inheritance suddenly felt like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known she was praying. Here was a woman whose life could be transformed not just by temporary assistance, but by the opportunity to transform the lives of others in return. Sister Catherine began to envision what $2 million could accomplish in Maria's capable hands. Block 4. The second face that haunted Sister Catherine's prayers belonged to Tommy Rodriguez, an 8-year-old boy she had met through her volunteer work at St. Francis Children's Home. Tommy had been in the foster care system since he was 3, cycling through 7 different homes as prospective parents discovered his unique challenges. Born with fetal alcohol syndrome, Tommy struggled with learning disabilities and behavioral issues that made him what social workers euphemistically called difficult to place. His file was thick with reports from families who had tried and failed to connect with a child whose trauma manifested in ways that tested even the most patient caregivers. Sister Catherine had begun tutoring Tommy 6 months earlier, drawn to his bright eyes and quick smile that appeared whenever someone took the time to really listen to him. Despite his challenges, Tommy possessed an remarkable artistic talent, creating drawings that revealed an emotional depth and creativity that adults often overlooked while focusing on his deficits. During their sessions, Tommy had shared his dream of becoming an artist, though he couldn't understand why the families who met him always seemed to want someone else. "Am I broken, Sister Catherine?" he had asked during one particularly difficult afternoon when yet another potential adoption had fallen through. The question had shattered her heart and crystallized her understanding of what the inheritance truly meant. Tommy didn't need just another temporary placement. He needed someone who could provide the specialized care, educational support, and unconditional love that would allow him to flourish despite his challenges. Sister Catherine began researching residential facilities that specialized in helping children with fetal alcohol syndrome, places where Tommy could receive the therapeutic support he needed while developing his artistic gifts. The cost was substantial, nearly $2 million for long-term care and education, but the investment could literally save a child's life. Block 5. When Sister Catherine finally requested a meeting with Mother Superior Margaret to discuss her plans for the inheritance, the conversation that followed would become one of the most difficult of her religious life. Mother Superior Margaret listened with growing concern as Sister Catherine outlined her intention to donate the entire inheritance to 2 individuals rather than to the church or established charitable organizations. "Sister Catherine," Mother Superior said carefully, "I understand your compassion for these people, but we have responsibilities to our community and our mission. This money could fund our operations for years, support dozens of our programs, and help hundreds of people rather than just 2. Sister Catherine had anticipated this argument and spent weeks preparing her response. She explained that her years of service had taught her that sometimes the most profound change happens when you invest deeply in individual lives, rather than spreading resources thinly across many causes. She spoke about Maria's potential to create a medical clinic that could serve thousands of homeless individuals over time, and about Tommy's need for intensive support that could transform him from a burden on the system into a contributing member of society. "With respect, Mother Superior," Sister Catherine said quietly, "Christ didn't feed 5,000 people efficiently through an organization. He saw individuals, the woman at the well, the tax collector, the children. Sometimes love requires us to choose depth over breadth." The conversation grew heated as Mother Superior pointed out that Sister Catherine's vow of poverty meant that large financial decisions should be made collectively, not individually. Canon law was invoked, as were concerns about precedent and the appearance of favoritism, but Sister Catherine remained unmoved, feeling a certainty that seemed to come from a source beyond institutional authority. She had prayed for guidance and received what felt like a clear answer, even if that answer challenged the expectations of her religious community. Block 6. If this story of radical compassion and faith in action is touching your heart, please let us know in the comments what country and city you're watching from. We love connecting with our global community of viewers who believe in the power of selfless giving. The process of actually distributing the inheritance proved far more complex than Sister Catherine had anticipated. Legal restrictions, tax implications, and institutional policies created a maze of bureaucratic obstacles that threatened to delay her plans indefinitely. Mr. Blake, the attorney handling the estate, expressed concern about the unusual nature of her intended gifts, warning that such large transfers to individuals without established non-profits could trigger investigations and tax consequences. Sister Catherine spent weeks working with financial advisors and legal experts, determined to structure the gifts in ways that would provide maximum benefit while protecting both recipients from potential complications. For Maria, the solution involved establishing a medical foundation with Maria as director, providing both the funding for her clinic and a salary that would allow her to focus entirely on serving homeless populations. For Tommy, the money would be placed in a trust fund that would cover his residential care, specialized education, and artistic training while providing for his future needs as an adult. The legal fees alone consumed nearly $200,000, money that Sister Catherine found herself reluctantly spending to ensure that her gifts would actually reach their intended recipients. During this period, she faced increasing pressure from church authorities, who had learned of her plans through diocesan channels and were threatening formal disciplinary action. Several prominent Catholic donors had also contacted the bishop, expressing outrage that such a substantial gift would be diverted away from traditional church causes. Sister Catherine found herself caught between her vow of obedience and what she believed to be God's direct call on her life, a tension that kept her awake during long nights of prayer and reflection. Block 7. On a cold December morning, Sister Catherine finally met with Maria at a downtown coffee shop to explain what was about to happen. Maria arrived early, as she always did, carrying her battered backpack and wearing the same winter coat that had protected her through 8 months of living in her car. When Sister Catherine explained the inheritance and her plans to fund a medical clinic, Maria's initial reaction was disbelief, followed by overwhelming emotion. "I don't understand," Maria said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Why would you do this for me? I'm nobody special. I'm just another homeless person who messed up her life." Sister Catherine reached across the small table and took Maria's hands in her own, feeling the calluses and scars that told the story of months spent surviving on the streets. "You're not just another homeless person," Sister Catherine said firmly. You're a skilled nurse who understands suffering in ways that could help thousands of people. This money isn't charity. It's an investment in your ability to serve others. Over the following weeks, Sister Catherine worked closely with Maria to develop a plan for the clinic, discussing everything from location and staffing to the specific services they would provide. Maria's vision was comprehensive and deeply informed by her personal experience. Mobile medical units that could reach people who would never enter a traditional clinic, partnerships with addiction treatment centers, and a training program that would employ formerly homeless individuals as community health workers. The transformation in Maria was immediate and profound. The shame and defeat that had characterized her demeanor for months gave way to excitement and purpose as she reconnected with the healer she had always been. Within 3 weeks, Maria had secured temporary housing and begun working with architects to design a facility that would serve Detroit's most vulnerable populations with dignity and respect. Block 8. The conversation with Tommy about his trust fund required even more careful consideration, given his age and the complex emotions surrounding his situation at the children's home. Sister Catherine chose to speak with him during one of their regular art sessions, waiting until he had settled into the focused concentration that always accompanied his drawing. She explained that a special gift had been given to help him have the best possible life, including the opportunity to live in a place where other children shared his challenges and where he could develop his artistic talents with expert teachers. Tommy's response was characteristically direct. "Does this mean I'm not broken anymore?" Sister Catherine knelt beside his chair, looking directly into his bright eyes. "You were never broken, Tommy. You were just waiting for the right people to understand how special you are." The residential facility they had chosen was located in Vermont, a therapeutic boarding school that specialized in helping children with fetal alcohol syndrome while nurturing their individual talents. Tommy would have access to art teachers, occupational therapists, and academic specialists who understood his learning style, along with peers who shared similar challenges. The program was designed to prepare him for independent living while developing the skills and confidence he would need to pursue his artistic dreams. When Sister Catherine showed Tommy pictures of the school, including the well-equipped art studios and the beautiful mountain setting, his excitement was infectious. For the first time since she had known him, Tommy began talking about his future with hope rather than resignation. The transformation was so profound that other children at St. Francis began asking Sister Catherine when their special gifts would arrive, not understanding that some miracles happen only once in a lifetime, but believing that love this radical might somehow be available to everyone. Block 9. As word of Sister Catherine's unprecedented generosity spread beyond the immediate Catholic community, the response was both passionate and polarized. Local media picked up the story, with some outlets celebrating her as a modern saint, while others questioned the wisdom of giving such large sums to individuals rather than established institutions. Religious scholars debated whether her actions represented the highest form of Christian charity or a dangerous precedent that undermined church authority and tradition. The bishop called a formal meeting to discuss what he termed Sister Catherine's irregular conduct, suggesting that her actions, while well-intentioned, might require formal censure to prevent other religious from making similar independent decisions with large donations. Sister Catherine attended the meeting with a calm demeanor that masked her inner turmoil, knowing that her entire religious vocation might be at stake. During the 3-hour session, she listened respectfully to concerns about precedent, authority, and the proper channels for charitable giving within the Catholic Church. When finally asked to defend her actions, Sister Catherine spoke simply. 25 years ago, I took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. I have lived those vows faithfully, owning nothing and serving wherever I was sent. But when God places $4 in my hands and shows me exactly how it should be used to transform lives, my highest obedience is to God's call, not to institutional expectations." The room fell silent as she continued. "Maria will save thousands of lives through her clinic. Tommy will become the artist God created him to be, instead of another casualty of a system that gave up on him. If that's irregular conduct, then I accept whatever consequences you deem appropriate." The bishop's final decision would not come for several weeks, but Sister Catherine had found a peace that transcended institutional approval or disapproval. Block 10. 6 months after the inheritance was distributed, the fruits of Sister Catherine's radical faith were becoming visible throughout Detroit. Maria's clinic, officially named Sacred Heart Medical Outreach, had opened in a renovated warehouse near downtown, serving an average of 50 homeless individuals each day with everything from basic wound care to mental health counseling. Maria had assembled a staff that included formerly homeless individuals trained as peer counselors, creating an environment where clients felt understood rather than judged. The clinic's innovative model was already being studied by medical schools and public health organizations as a potential template for serving vulnerable populations in other cities. Tommy had enrolled at Mountain View Therapeutic Academy in Vermont and was thriving in ways that amazed everyone who had known him during his years in foster care. His behavioral issues had decreased dramatically in an environment where his challenges were understood and his strengths were celebrated. His art teacher reported that Tommy possessed exceptional talent and was already creating pieces that reflected remarkable emotional maturity and technical skill. Most importantly, Tommy had begun talking about his future with confidence, planning to attend art school and eventually become a teacher who could help other children with learning differences. Sister Catherine visited both Maria and Tommy regularly, marveling at the transformation that $4 million had purchased when invested in human potential rather than institutional infrastructure. The money had not just changed 2 lives, it had created ripple effects that would continue expanding for generations. Maria's clinic was training the next generation of healthcare workers who understood homelessness from personal experience, while Tommy was developing into an artist whose work would eventually inspire countless others who felt marginalized or misunderstood. Block 11. 1 year after giving away her inheritance, Sister Catherine sat in the same modest meeting room where she had first learned of her great-aunt's gift, reflecting on a decision that had cost her the approval of some colleagues, but had brought her closer to her understanding of divine purpose than any other action in her religious life. The bishop had ultimately decided against formal disciplinary action, influenced partly by the overwhelmingly positive media coverage and partly by the clear evidence that Sister Catherine's gifts were producing exactly the kind of transformative results that the Church claimed to seek. Mother Superior Margaret had also come to terms with Sister Catherine's decision, admitting that the visible fruits of her generosity had challenged traditional assumptions about effective charitable giving. Maria's clinic had received national recognition and additional funding from healthcare foundations, impressed by its innovative approach, while Tommy's transformation had been documented by child welfare advocates as proof that intensive, individualized intervention could succeed where traditional foster care had failed. Sister Catherine had received dozens of letters from other religious communities, some critical, but many supportive, with several nuns writing that her example had inspired them to reconsider their own approach to serving the poor. Most meaningful to her were the weekly updates from Maria and Tommy, whose gratitude never diminished, but whose focus had shifted from thanking her to sharing their excitement about helping others. "I understand now what you did," Maria had written in her most recent letter. "You didn't just give me money, you gave me back my purpose, my identity as a healer. Every person who walks into this clinic is receiving a gift that started with your faith in me. Tommy's letters were filled with descriptions of his art projects and his growing confidence, but his most recent drawing showed three figures holding hands: himself, Maria, and Sister Catherine, surrounded by rays of light that he had labeled Love Shared. As Sister Catherine contemplated the empty inheritance account and her unchanged lifestyle in the convent, she felt a satisfaction deeper than any material wealth could have provided. She had learned that the greatest fortune comes not from what we accumulate, but from what we give away when guided by love that sees potential where others see only problems.